You are listening to The Robert Scott Bell Show.
These days, it's more important than ever to know where our food and supplements come from. That's why at Plus CBD Oil, we believe it is critical to manage every step of the supply chain process. It all starts with certified hemp seeds. Our hemp grows tall, like bamboo, and is harvested within 3 months. After harvest, the hemp is dried and sent to our CO2 extraction facility, where our raw formula is extracted. The extracted oil is then lawfully imported to our state-of-the-art in-house laboratory in San Diego, California. There, we convert our raw formula into our total plant complex and gold formula oils. Our oils are then used to formulate our award-winning Plus CBD oil product line. The products are then tested for cannabinoid content and the absence of harmful substances. But we go one step further. We then send our products to a third-party laboratory to verify concentration, quality, and safety. After that, the products have finished their journey and are ready to be shipped to your local health food store. Because at Plus CBD Oil, we believe how you do anything is how you do everything. That's why, from seed to shelf, we are committed to providing safe and effective hemp CBD products for you and your loved ones. It's our promise to you. Learn more about our commitment to full traceability at pluscbdoil.com.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
I listen to get accurate, up-to-date information.
I've learned so much from him.
It is awesome. It's the best entertainment that I've found.
You rock the health world. Keep it up. I love you.
Now, the voice of health, freedom, and liberty, here's Robert Scott Bell.
The Fox News decision desk can now project that former Vice President Joe Biden will win Pennsylvania and Nevada, putting him over the 270 electoral votes he needs to become the 46th president of the United States.
Donald Trump, the 45th president of the United States, who stated in this process, "I will never give up fighting for you and our nation," will be denied a second term. That has not happened since 1992 and President George H.W. Bush.
And with that, Fox News lost 50% of its viewership. Welcome to the Robert Scott Bell Show, the place where y'all can come and enjoy. The water's warm. It's not toxic. It's not communist. It's not socialist. It's not collectivist. The place for health, freedom, and healing liberty right here, right now on the Robert Scott Bell Show. Hour 2, already going to give you a preview of that. Not a doc. Chris Barr is back. We're going to have a blast with him. There's a new, let's say, edict out of Switzerland. The FDA is going to have to send a cease and desist letter to Switzerland because Switzerland actually acknowledged the role of dietary supplements, mineral deficiencies, as it manifests in what they call COVID. COVID crazy. We do have COVID news. Should Biden accede or ascend, shall we say, or descend to the presidency? What are his plans? What's he going to do with the nonsense scamdemic? We'll get to that as well. But first and foremost, threw up a little bit in my mouth as I heard Fox News do their thing with glee, right? Is there any pretense? Do any of y'all think if there's any shred of credibility in the mainstream media when it comes to points of controversy? As we pointed out over the time, when Super Don throws me a CNN article or a coverage that we got to cover, I get a little bit annoyed, but not really, because if it's not about a controversial topic, it's probably okay. But if it's a controversy about cancer, the causes of cancer, or cures for cancer, if it's a controversy about vaccines, if it's a controversy about the germ theory, not that they ever cover that, it's completely propaganda, and that includes Fox News. And yes, they throw out people like Tucker Carlson for plausible deniability. See, we're good. You got Tucker. And then you hear that they canceled Judge Jeanine because she was going to cover the controversy about the election fraud that has happened. Does anybody really believe that the end of the United States is near because Trump has not said, I lost. Congratulations, Biden. Does anybody remember back to the controversy in 1990, year 2000? Al Gore and GWB. And Gore didn't say he lost. And there was challenges. The nation managed to lumber on. So what is all of this pretense to say, well, Trump is a dictator, he's a this, he's a that, because he's not saying he lost? And honestly, you've heard me say it. I don't believe he did. As I've predicted, the only way Biden could be declared a winner is through cheating, massive vote fraud. Now, what we're dealing with, and by the way, every declaration of Biden winning is premature. Can I say it that way for our British friends? Premature. Because until the Electoral College votes, it's not over. It just isn't. They don't get to declare the winner. Now, there are challenges, court challenges in a number of states. There are a number of anomalies, more and more coming every which way. But Lucien, be nice to Super Don. Y'all are sending all of them to Super Don. I feel for him. It's just overwhelming. He's like, get off my lawn at this point. There's no way around it. He can't. I mean, he's just one guy. Yeah, he's super, but enough. Or at least be patient with him, because I'm going to bring him into the mix in a moment. My personal belief, Trump won the states he needed to get the Electoral College, and yet we don't know if the courts are going to rule in that way based on what evidence is provided and presented in these court cases. So any of us speculating are just speculating. I have a sense about it, and I feel like as much as a disaster it would be to have Biden president because of all the Chinese influence, it doesn't mean everything was going along perfectly well and swimmingly, because Trump was president for almost 4 years. And one of the things that I said over the last year, and probably longer than that, is the problem is we care so much about who's president, like it's an end of the world election every 4 years. And you don't tell me you haven't heard this every time, whether it be on the political left or political right. This is the most important election of our lifetime. Every time. There's never been, oh, well, do you remember it? No. This one's not important. Voting for, no one says that. They never say that. Now, I wish we could say that and mean it, but the only way that could happen is if we put our government in America into its constitutional cage, bind it down with the change of the Constitution, and make it so that it is so weak, because our founders designed it that way, that it would have very little or no impact on our everyday lives. The problem is it has grown so large that it seems to matter that it's like the end of the world for one side or the other if the other guy or gal gets in instead of your guy or gal. And I've told you my preference in this election. I haven't hidden it. I'm kind of mad at myself for even wanting one over the other, just because on the level of the principle of what this constitutionally written in limited Republican form of government is, that we shouldn't care so much about it, because there's not a lot a president could do. But we've lost that limitation on the power and scope of the federal government, so it matters more. But it's still, no matter what, if you have a true conservative or a Republican that's somewhat constitutional more than the Democrat, it's a toe tap on the road to globalism and socialism and communism. Trump knows that vaccines are dangerous. He's known about it before he was president. I've reported on it. We've had others report on it. And if it's not a firsthand, it's a secondhand knowingness. Yet he went politically and said, let's go for the warp speed vaccine. I think that was a mistake. Some would say strategically that was probably a good move, because you kind of remove some of the elements of the Trump haters, and they're saying Trump was anti-vaccine, which seems to go a long way in the mainstream media. I don't think as much success with the general public, where almost everybody knows somebody now who has been injured or has a child or grandchild who has been injured by a vaccine. But we're looking now politically to appease the mainstream media, which a Republican, a Trump, could never do. And we looked 4 years ago when Trump did succeed and win. His ability to reach through social media was successful. No, it wasn't Russian bots. And so a big part of the last 4 years is how are we going to curtail the ability of those who like Trump or Trump himself and his supporters to get the message out through that. So they curtailed that. And nobody in Congress, bar a couple of people maybe, said, hey, Section 230, we should probably revoke that. Didn't happen. And now we have Republicans sitting on the sideline going, yeah, Trump lost. Just get over it. Let's get on with Biden or Kamala Harris. Look, I've got friends from Jamaica. I feel like I'm an honorary Jamaican. I've been there so many times in my younger years. Been there like a native other than the lack of pigment. And I love Jamaica and the Jamaican people. I have great experiences there. Yes, they tried to sell me drugs. No, not my friends, but if you go out on the beach, that's what I was like. You want some stuff, man? Good stuff. Now, back when that was illegal, now it's legal in a lot of places. But just because somebody shares your nationality or national origin, whether, she's half Indian, half Jamaican, half American, whatever that means. I don't support or oppose a person based on their national heritage or previous. It's about political ideology. What? Tell me about your principles. What do you believe? What do you perceive the government is supposed to do? What are the limits of the Constitution, or are there any? And pretty much both parties have lost sight of limited government. Republicans kind of direct their way a little bit more toward what we sort of like. But still, it's not anywhere near constitutional. The vast majority of everything the federal government doesn't pass constitutional muster. And we have to wait for the Supreme Court to say that? Oh, it's fine unless the Supreme Court says it's not constitutional. Really? You're going to let the Supreme Court, an agency, or if you will, a branch of the federal government, determine the limits of its own power? I mean, wasn't it Marbury versus Madison gave them the ability to declare something unconstitutional, constitutional? For everybody, on everything, as opposed to the case that they are ruling upon. Oh, it's precedent. And so it made it so important to have the Senate so that a conservative justice would be put into the Supreme Court to counteract whatever Biden's going to do to try to put liberal reconstructionist judges in there. So the fundamental bottom line for me is like why we are caring so much about presidents because we have gone so off kilter and allowed the federal government to do what it's doing. And if Biden succeeds in stealing this election through fraud, we got to deal with it. And the question is, what do we do then? How do we minimize our exposure to unconstitutional violations of our fundamental freedoms? Well, we look at what's going on in even conservative states with so-called Republican judges, governors. Like Utah. Check this out. Governor D-Bag Herbert has just ordered statewide mask mandate and other coronavirus restrictions. And he's actually claiming that you could be fined for not wearing a mask. I'm like, bring it on, Governor Douchebag. Check this out. Yeah, this is a good meme there, Super Don. Where is it? Let me see if it's hiding there. There it is. All right, let me go full screen on you. Boom, I got it. Your unconstitutional mask mandate stops where my freedom to breathe begins. Oh, I am so ticked off about this. It's like, and it's not just this. I wanted to fly my mom in, Grandma Mickey, you know who you are, to come see my daughter's improv group. She was going to come see the play. That didn't work out. Then the improv. She's doing an improv thing. And now suddenly this dude, I'm trying to be nice. It's hard. It's difficult. Basically says all extracurricular activities, everything's canceled. Because kids, high school teenagers, they're super spreaders based on no evidence whatsoever. Well, we have to have this mask mandate because, oh man, the cases, the hospitals can't keep up. Really? Well, maybe you should run your hospitals better. Maybe you should bring more doctors in. Maybe you should expand your ICUs if there's so much demand for ICUs instead of saying everybody outside it that is healthy has to now restrict their breathing and participate in satanic mask rituals, Governor Herbert. So I had to cancel my mom's visit. And this is an airline thing too. The whole world has gone insane because of the germ theory. We're a bunch of absolute morons on this planet as humans. Oh, we're falling for it. Invisible things that actually keep us alive are the cause of everybody's death all the time. Injury, illness, everything. Causes everything. And so my mom tried to wear a mask because she's 86, no drugs, goes out dancing. Yeah, 86, everybody's got challenges, but pretty darn good. Tries the mask on at home to test it out. It's like a minute after, 2 minutes out, it's like, I can't breathe. I can't do this. She imagines flying cross country wearing a mask. Not happening. I call up the airline. Of course, they say, nope, no exceptions. No exemptions. No. 86-year-old woman can't wear a mask because of a history of lung issues. No, sorry, can't do it. Do you see what's happening here? Who's responsible for this? It's not. Biden didn't do it. Trump didn't do it, although Trump could have put a halt to it, I shall say it that way. If Trump listened to the right people, Scott Atlas is a better step than, obviously, Fauci. But if Biden comes in, what's he going to do? How the Biden presidency plans to combat COVID-19. Why do we even need to combat COVID-19? There's no test for it. And we'll get into it in hour two with Not a Doc. We'll show you how your nutrient supplementation or your diet are critical. Not a vaccine, not a drug, not a ventilator. We cannot repair the economy, restore our vitality, or relish life's most precious moments. Hugging, birthdays, weddings, graduations, all the moments that matter to us until we get this virus under control. You can't get a virus under control, you buffoon. Biden is a buffoon, but so is Trump on this matter. I'm at the risk of pissing off half of my or most of my viewers and listeners. There's some things that Trump did wrong. Yes, there are. Including buying into the BS that Fauci told him. And so we're seeing what would have been, in my humble perspective, an absolute Trump landslide this election had he put his foot down and said, you know what? This virus is not harming anybody but the most vulnerable among us. Let's take care of those people, however you want to do it, and let's let the people and the freedom and the economy continue to chug along how it was. There wouldn't have even been a close contest they could have even conceivably cheated enough. But of course they cheated enough this time because it was close enough, but they didn't even hide the cheating. And that's going to come out in the courts. We'll see what happens, but they don't care. It's right in your face. All of this stuff. You guys are finding it. I think the only people reporting on it are like One America News, which is where most Fox listeners and viewers went to. Kudos to One America News for having some independence still. Hopefully that maintains itself. And of course, right here on the Robert Scott Bell Show and a few other places. John Rappaport yesterday on the Robert Scott Bell Show. I mean, we nailed it. Went in, and even Fauci's own words convict anybody who is a moron enough to continue to believe that the PCR test is a legitimate test to determine infection. And then we get to the COVID vaccine. Well, let's hear the pronouncement from one of the manufacturers of the COVID vaccine, Pfizer, and their great joy and celebration. Oh, the world is saved now. Why? Give a listen.
What was it like when you saw the results, 90% efficacy for your vaccine for COVID?
It was exactly what you can imagine. It is a great day for science. It is a great day for humanity when you realize that your vaccine has a 90% effectiveness. That's overwhelming. You understand that the hopes of billions of people and millions and businesses and hundreds of governments that were felt on our shoulders, now we can credibly tell them, I think we can see light at the end of the tunnel.
90% effective at doing what? What did we talk about? The study design for all the COVID vaccines, including the Pfizer one. No design to determine prevention of severe or deadly, what they call COVID-19. Nothing in the study design to determine whether it prevents transmission for those that believe in COVID-19 BS. So if it's 90% effective, the only thing they can claim based on the study design, 90% effective at reducing mild cases, for which we don't need any help. Mild cases. Oh, but what if those mild cases result? Well, your vaccine doesn't provide any evidence to say that those people aren't transmitting whatever it is you claim they're transmitting. And did you notice now that the media, with its glee, determining that Trump has lost even before the Electoral College has cast its votes and before all the court challenges are heard, suddenly the liberals are going, and the liberal media is going, vaccine is great, 90%. Hooray, we're saved. Wait a second. This is the same vaccine that was being produced during the Trump attempts at warp speeding? Oh, they're going to claim, well, this had nothing to do with warp speed, right? But it's still happening while Trump is president. He's still president. Suddenly it's okay? Oh, yeah, because Biden will be president. So we know that one will be legit. Wait, what happened to all the months that this has been going on? Well, Trump is president, and it's not something you would trust, Kalimar. Oh, no. Well, no, because Biden has been, right? You follow me? There's no logic here. There's deception. There's corruption. There's insanity. There's delusion. And by the way, you get a Governor Herbert, and he's not the only one in Utah. Democrats largely, but some Republicans too, outside of DeSantis and Noem. I think that's how you pronounce her name in South Dakota. But what most people don't know about governors of the 50 states is that they're also considered assistant governors of the fund. Folks, this may be completely new and radical. You may have never heard this, but you need to do some digging and investigating to understand that your governor is not the governor of the people of your state or the governor of your state. The state has been basically made party to a debt that can never be repaid and according to the Constitution can't even be questioned. We're talking about the U.S. national debt, which was created via the 13th Amendment, wasn't it? The Federal Reserve Act? Federal Reserve Act of 1913. That's why I was thinking 1913. Set the stage for fiat funny money, the removal of gold and silver from the money itself over time, and then the use of money that was backed by nothing except the promise to pay via your Social Security number, via your kids' or grandkids' Social Security number, linking them as collateral to the debt through their ongoing labor to be made debt slaves in perpetuity, which is why my kids don't have that number. I would not mark them so when I knew that. I knew it before I had kids, but I didn't know it. Most people still don't know it. Don't understand that that number is not about Social Security in America. And no, it's an international number. And these governors are governors of the fund, assistant governors of the fund. What fund is that? The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. And I feel it's time to put your big boy pants and big girl pants on and see this for what it is. This is so far much more than one election, Trump or Biden. And yet I still believe Trump won, and I still believe it's possible he will win in the courts. I don't know what happened in reality in year 2000 with Gore versus Bush. I don't know ultimately, but I know that it took time for the courts to run their courts before, and Gore didn't say, I lost. He insisted that he won, and he went to court. The country is already fallen apart for different reasons, not because of this. And it's all to do with economics. And we're wallpapering the economy of the United States. Even the good stuff that happened under Trump, recognize it's temporary until we come back to our senses and use just weights and measures. And yet there are people in the states, and there are certain states that have established gold and silver as legal tender once again. So that in the worst case scenario, you still have some ability to interact economically without a beastly number being injected into you or stamped on your forehead or gold starred onto your lapel or your ID. What is my point in saying all of this? Because this is none of this was planned. Super Don and I were talking about this before the show, and I just wanted to reduce Super Don's burden because he's been dealing with this all weekend. People sending him stuff, and I'm like, you know what? I don't even want to go heavily into all of that, but I will open the mic for Super Don in just a moment, so be ready. I want to go deeper, higher, whatever it is, to recognize that until we don't care who's president, we have not succeeded as an American people in putting the government back into its constitutionally limited cage. Jerry Doyle used to say, what was it Jerry Doyle used to say about limiting the exposure? that you had to government. Because
minimizing the impact of government on your
right?
life. Yeah.
Now, granted, that's becoming more difficult, Super Don. Would you agree? In a Biden administration, when he would come down with some form of a national mask mandate, or further encourage the IDs, the real IDs tied to vaccine status, et cetera, which wasn't completely halted under Trump. So again, it's not like it's perfect and bad. It's like a little less bad and really bad. And I still would defer to having Trump to buy us a little bit more time to correct it if it's at all possible.
I don't know. Maybe so your question was, is it harder? Will it be harder having Biden as a president to minimize the impact of government on your life?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question.
I don't think so.
Okay. Explain yourself.
Well, listen, how many people out there that are living in places like California and stuff like that are, when Newsom said, you have to wear a mask, how many of you wore a mask?
Right. Yeah.
You didn't do it, right?
Oh, I'm interacting with people under mask mandates going, dude, I was at a Constitution meeting on Friday.
And some people do, some people don't.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think, if you don't want to, you're probably not going to.
Yep.
I mean, Robert, are you going to run around with a mask everywhere you go and every time you go outside?
Hell to the no.
No. And would it matter if you had
good
Biden
luck
as a president or Trump as a president? Would that change whether you would wear a mask or not?
Well, and to your point, Super Don, it's interesting to consider this. And this is still not me endorsing Biden. I don't want him as president. I don't have control over that. Now it's going to the courts. But it would elicit from the political right more movement toward how do we limit that governmental impact on our lives? How do we push back? And even movement for secession by Texas or other states. And, the thing is, when you brought up T-shirts, right? People are wearing "Not My President" T-shirts, right? Remember when Obama was president and you had people going "Not my president"? Well,
Yes.
Same thing's happening now with Biden potentially. But I'm like, dude, he's not anybody's president until the Electoral College happens, and then follow that. Okay, a little premature, but it's more arguable that President Biden would be president of China at this point, based on what we have learned about the influence that they're peddling. So can you be president of China and the United States at the same time? Apparently, in the era of globalism, there's no limit. And governors do not represent the people or the states. They are assistant governors of the fund, and they get a little leeway, like Noem and DeSantis apparently occasionally. But you see rhinos like Herbert in Utah and then Cox coming in after him. They're all about globalism. They're all never Trumpers as well. What does that mean? Trump, nationalistic in terms of America first. That doesn't go over well. Listen to our discussion yesterday with John Rappaport on that. I think it was a great, great show. And you can listen. It's all the archives there at robertscottbell.com. So, Super D, what do you want to add to the mix here before we break? Bottom of the hour here.
I don't know.
Nothing?
I don't know.
Stump the band?
No.
All right. Here's the links in the show notes to the stories I've sort of covered in a haphazard way. Played a couple opening video clips. That's the last time we watched Fox News here on the Robert Scott Bell Show, probably. I didn't like them beforehand. But, that's the good thing, too, because my wife's not even watching them anymore. That's a good thing. Look out. One American News. My mom is watching OANN, and apparently she can watch it on her TV.
Here's the problem, though. Where do you watch it if you don't? Because I've noticed, I've seen posts from people.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was from Ty.
Okay.
Talking about OANN, and it's on DirecTV channel 347 or something like that.
Yeah, I think you have to have that satellite provider. Otherwise, maybe there's an online option.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's unfortunate that you don't have something that everybody maybe on the computer. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've seen some rumors going around about how Trump is talking about creating a media company, media empire.
If he's not president, right?
If he ends up not being president. Well,
I think
it's a great idea, him or somebody, because I think the landscape is looking for something like that right now, an alternative.
Yeah.
there's a huge opportunity when you got 70 million people that don't want to watch Fox News anymore.
Right.
They're suddenly going, where do we go? Right.
Yeah, I don't know about Newsmax. That's also put out there.
That's another one. I noticed a number of people have
Next News Network was at Gary Franchi. He's doing good work over the years. But
yeah.
I think, there are positives here that now we have disillusionment on the political right about, we have our network. No, you don't. Fox News was never in your camp. They were always globalists. They kind of played you. They played all of us in that sense. And as I said, I urge you, please support new media outlets, including the Robert Scott Bell Show. Become a patron supporter, or at the very least support those who support us, because, again, the attacks on us, the attacks on all of us are only going to ramp up with a Chinese communist president of the United States and Joe Biden, should that occur. And so we're going to have to continually be creative and keep the ideas coming, finding out ways that we can keep delivering this message, because this is fundamentally about your freedom, your spiritual freedom, as it manifests in the physical world. To worship. Look at the attacks on churches, on synagogues, everything that's happening here. Does that slow down under Biden? No, it ramps up. But if it does, of course, it will cause a rise up, which should have happened a long time ago. But we were, kind of fat and happy and lazy. We had it easy, Super Don, didn't we? We talked about our childhood. We didn't care for much. And we had a good time. Well, it's different now. Now you're talking about freedom being seriously on the line here. At historical levels where this is going, if they get away with it, if you let them get away with it. So let's take a break here. First hour is up. No, it's not. First half hour is up. Let's go to Great Britain. Our friends on UK Health Radio feel neglected because these have all been America all the time. America. Well, let's do the United Kingdom. A story about the British Army. What are they doing to kids in schools? And what do they have anything to do with kids in schools in Great Britain? What's going on there? And what's the New York Bar Association say about your freedom to say no to a COVID-19 vaccine? And then Chris Barr, not a doc. We'll talk about the nutritional aspects once again, coming out of Switzerland and other places like Denmark that point to selenium as the key if you're concerned about viral or exosomal activity, COVID or otherwise. Thanks for being here, y'all. Thanks to our friends at Synergy Science as well. I'm going to play their clip here from the Key Technology this hour. QI Technology, it's also known as the WaveGuard, and I have one right here. This is the Key Shield, and I would not want to be without it in the era of 5th and beyond, 6th generation beyond Wi-Fi technologies. You want protection? Double-blind placebo-controlled tests conducted? Yeah, go get it. We'll be right back.
Today, we live in an omnipresent cloud of charged particles emitted by electronic devices, electromagnetic fields, WLAN, and radio waves. These particles penetrate our bodies and heat the water in our body tissues. Recent scientific studies have shown that this particle flux not only heats the cells in our bodies as if we were in a microwave oven, but damages them as well. At Key Technologies, we want to protect you from the negative effects of such particles, so we have developed the Key Home Cell and other products. The Key Home Cell creates a protective field that works like a filter, intercepting any dangerous particles before they can enter your body. Here we have a partial look at the inner workings of the Key Home Cell. The Key Home Cell generates a charge exchange between the water tubes, thereby discharging free electrons and releasing them into the room. Within 24 hours, the Key Home Cell creates a torus field. The free electrons formed in the torus use their negative charge to bind to the positively charged harmful particles, thereby rendering them harmless to you. The torus field has an effective range of 16.4 feet above and below, and 24.6 feet around the device. The torus field created by the Key Home Cell is transmitted and provides you with protection through the walls of your home. Not only humans and animals are shielded from harmful radiation, but plants and food too. Whether mobile radio waves or WLAN, any particles that come within the torus field can no longer cause any harm to you or your family. The Key Home Cell provides you with all-around protection, allowing you to communicate with absolute peace of mind when using your cell phone or any other electronic devices. The Key Home Cell's free electrons are transmitted into the water through the torus field and repairing the water structure that was destroyed by radiation particles. Water regains its ideal vibrating hexagonal grid structure. The difference is easy to taste and can be proven with laboratory testing. This type of perfect hexagonal water structure is found in fresh spring and healing water and has also been seen in snowflakes. The same effect happens with our food, which also contains water. The Key Home Cell greatly reduces radiation exposure from cell phones, laptops, WLAN transmitters, mobile terminals, and other sources of radiation. The Key Home Cell drastically reduces the thermal stress on your body tissue. It is very fast and very easy. With the Key Home Cell, you will experience a new quality of well-being within your home and more life energy without any unhealthy exposure to radiation.
All right, where's some British music, Super Don? Give me some British music. What is that?
Well, I had very little time to cue this up, but I think you'll recognize it here in just a second here.
This is for our friends at the United Kingdom, listening on UK Health Radio, right? Why? Well, we've got a story out of UK, and it relates to the British. I don't know.
Here it comes.
Okay.
Do you recognize it now?
You know what? We're
This is a very slow-paced one here.
Yeah.
This is Rule Britannia.
Rule Britannia. Yeah, that's okay. We're going to do that. We're going to deal with that. Why? Because the British Army is in the news here. Our friends at Health Impact News covering this. Brian Shalavi. What is it? Check it out. British Army to begin testing and barcoding children at school this week without parental consent. There you go. Oh, yeah. Hello, Great Britain. Not so great now, are you? British Army to begin testing and barcoding children at school this week. And you think, I'm upset about Real ID? You're going to come in and barcode my kids in Great Britain? Oh, hello. You don't mind if we... No, I can't even go there. It's just like, come on, send your kids to school and we'll barcode them. Why? Why are they doing that? Well, let's go back to this story and see if this makes any sense whatsoever. Thousands of people in the UK this past weekend protested new COVID lockdowns. The British Army planning to roll out a massive new COVID testing initiative. Look at them. These are Army people. Are they going to stick long cotton swabs up the nose of your British children without parental consent? A letter was sent out to parents of children attending Broad Green International School, letting them know that their child would be tested by the military even without their consent. This is COVID crazy. COVID-19 test. Folks, if you don't put your foot down and declare your children sacred, not property of the state, and also put your foot down and say, I'm on to you. I'm on to you, Governor Herbert. I'm on to you, President, whoever. I'm on to you. Prince Charles? Who is it? Boris? I'm on to you in England because the test is crap. And that's an insult to crap. There is no basis for determining acute infectious disease or agents via amplifying unknown genetic material to cross-reference it with a small partial strand of RNA that you claim is part of a whole unique new viral sequence that you call SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19. It's false on its face. And yet we're still listening to doctors and PhD researchers and scientists and Fauci, who admitted the cycling issue, the cycling dilemma. Over 35, it's nonsense. Go back and listen to yesterday's show with John Rappaport. You'll know what I'm talking about. It's not the first time we covered it, but it's the first time we covered it with John talking about what Fauci admitted. And the FDA says go up to 40 cycles. In Europe, 45, no problem. That means everybody is positive. And so Governor Herbert in Utah saying, we're locking down the state. We're emergency going on. Mask everybody. We're going to get free tests out to everybody. For what? You don't even have a test for it. It's emergency use authorization. No standard. On and on it goes. And these are the people that are supposedly legitimate representatives of what? The moronic United States? The moronic United Kingdom? Test. With tests that don't test for what you claim they're testing for. Is there a little bit of exasperation in my voice and face today? I'm trying to hide it in the scraggly old beard that I could never achieve any type of, Well, when you see Not a Doc, Chris Barr in hour 2, you'll understand. I'm trying, but it would take me years, and I still wouldn't get there. I admit it, okay? Not manly enough, apparently. But every once in a while, No Shave November, people call. I just decided, I was going to shave yesterday. Didn't happen. I was going to shave today. Didn't happen. In fact, I mean, I'm feeling real manly, Super Don. You know what I did yesterday? You know what I did?
What did you do?
Well, I've been working on selling our old 07 Kia, 2007. Got 95,000 miles on it, so it's low mileage. But it was having this little bit of oil leak. We're like trying to figure this thing out. And it wasn't, I couldn't see it underneath, but on the top. And I was talking to some folks, and then there's a guy who knows mechanic stuff, friend of, let's say, the husband of the wife of the friend of my daughters. And I thought it was like something disastrous, like a head gasket, which is like, oh man, that's brutal, right?
All right.
Turns out it's a valve cover gasket. And so I get in there, undo all the top things, and pull it up with the help. Shout out to Eddie, my new buddy, helped me out. But I was like, you know when Tom Hanks did that in Castaway? I made fire, right? That kind of thing. Right. I felt a little bit like that. I replaced a valve cover gasket. Right. You know, feeling very and maybe Tim Allen-y like thing like that. So yeah, but the thing is, we pulled this gasket off. It was like hard and like brittle. And I guess after 95,000 miles, it doesn't hold its seal so well. So you had a little bit. It wasn't a major thing. Cleaned it up. Put the new gasket in, put it down. Everything's beautiful. It's like, oh, yeah. So what is it about that story that has anything to do with anything today? It's about self-sufficiency. It's about finding a way to do something when somebody says, there's no way you could do that. I'm not trained as a mechanic. I had a little help, but you can see this stuff on YouTube now, how to do this stuff. And it was like, I'm not saying it was a head gasket. I didn't go that deep in the end, but it was a valve cover gasket. I'm like, dude, I was so excited. I was like a little kid yesterday doing that. I was like, this is so cool. This is so cool. Anyway, we've got to find ways to be, what did we say? Less concerned about who's president, because the impact on your life is diminished by the way you live your life. Not saying that it doesn't matter, but it should matter a whole hell of a lot less if we held our government, local, state, federal, to the bounds of the Constitution, the limits of the Constitution. But we have governors that represent the International Monetary Fund by their very existence now, because the states have been made collateral and the people of the states have been made collateral to the debt that can't be questioned and can never be repaid. Folks, that's a very real thing. Contracts of adhesion, you don't even realize you're entering into it. You ask permission to get married. You gave your kid a certificate of life, birth certificate, as if that was really needed by the state. Couldn't record that in your Bible like your ancestors. You ask permission to get married. You ask permission, on and on and on. The permission. Stop asking for permission where none is required. But Robert, they say I have to have permission. Of course they do. They want you to be subservient to them, not the other way around. And you could say, well, we the people, all you want. But if your behavior belies your statement, then I'm going to believe what you say or what you do. These are the questions I ask. I don't have answers to all of them. But I want you to consider it and be prayerful, contemplative, meditative, however you do it. And yes, it's possible in the courts Trump will still win. But what if he doesn't, right? We look at all of those things. How do we play this thing out? What do we do? The same thing we did before and lose? How about recognizing that the power of the presidency is supposed to be not very powerful? As with Congress, as with the courts, very limited government, that we have lost our way. And this is going back a century or more. And that's Jonathan Emord's new book about progressivism coming out in February. That'll give you some history perspective of how this happened. So they want to barcode the kids in England. Apparently there was a big protest, thankfully. And despite their desire to barcode kids and test them without parental permission, let's see. Did they push back? And did they say, oh, yeah, here's an update. Apparently, after much negative feedback from parents, this is as of November 9th, today, I think, the school has backed down and now said that they will only test students who have parental consent. But is that really much better? I mean, some kids get to be barcoded and others don't. And they get to be tested with a test that has no standard. Is that better, Super Don? I mean, I guess marginally. They're going to ask permission first to test you with a test that's crap.
Well, I mean, there's two takeaways from that. Number one, if you actually stand up and say something, sometimes you can affect change, at least moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger point to take away from that is the fact that they even tried to do this. And that just goes to show you, I think a lot of times what you see happening is kind of a test.
Right.
And it's like, well, let's see how this goes over here. Well, if there's no opposition to it, and they just do it, then other places are going to look at that and go, okay, well, it worked there. Let's do it here too.
Yeah. Yes. And Jonathan Wagner from ChooseToBeHealthy.com is laughing at me because I have a scraggly thing. It's not called a beard, really. It's just scruffiness.
I was going to try and keep up with you, but I was like already.
But look at you. You shaved this morning, and
I kept a little bit. I didn't do like a close shave.
Yeah.
But over the weekend, I was like, you weren't doing it. So I was like, okay, I won't do it either. But by the time Sunday rolled around, I was like, I can't deal with this. I got to do something here.
I hadn't hit that point yet, apparently. But I did found I won the challenge of the week at my gym last week. I didn't realize that. This morning I went to work out. And by the way, it was a hard workout. And then I realized I didn't take my Cardio Miracle before I went to the workout this morning.
Uh-oh.
That was the first time by accident I didn't, because I'm really consistent. And I'm like, dude, I'm feeling a little sluggish today. What's going on? I was sore from Friday because Rachel worked my quadriceps to death, right? And I'm still recovering. But listen, I got back. I got my Cardio Miracle in me, and that was great. But yeah, apparently I won the challenge of the week, which was like how many steps you can take while doing the jump rope, right? I didn't think I won because one of the trainers beat me, and she said, no, the trainers are not eligible to beat you. I'm like, well, she said, doesn't matter, apparently. So thanks a lot, Rachel. So there will be a silly picture of me with my jump rope and the Chow Challenge, whatever, winning belt, like I won something, but I didn't win anything. Anyway, just silly stuff. But it was like more confirmation that the workouts are going great despite all of this. Be the best you can be. Strengthen your body, your mind, your spirit, and get through this. I don't want this, and Super Don, I don't think you do either, that to be this is the end of the world if they don't declare Trump the winner. And again, I still believe in the courts it could happen. I mean, look, this court thing is not unprecedented. If there's enough challenge or whatever, it's close enough, it could happen. And do I prefer that? Yes. But is it the end of the world? If not, well, there's some problems.
Of course not.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, people thought it was going to be the end of the world when Obama won.
Yeah.
And it wasn't.
But it's closer. It's closer to the end of the United States as we know it.
Yeah.
But it could be that
we'll
that's
get
what
through this. No matter what happens, we're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it just means maybe we got more we have to do.
Yeah.
Maybe it's gonna be a harder fight. But listen, if there's, and it looks like there very well could be, some election fraud going on, they're going to court. They're supposed to have this evidence. They'll present the evidence, and then we'll see what happens there.
But you did notice all of the conservative Republican Trump supporters going out and burning and looting and right.
That's true. They completely destroyed
every city that they're
nationwide.
In. Yeah, all of the conservative cities are burning right now. No. The thing is about the lefties, the collectivists, the communists, they're like they feel like every time they don't win they were cheated and it was cheating, but maybe there's not evidence there. The point is, what is it going to take to wake up the people of America? Now I speak to my fellow Americans. To recognize that their government, no matter who's in charge, is so bloated and over large that it's impacting negatively the people of the states, much less those areas of the world where we are we're not there constitutionally. And I understand, again, a lot of the things of geopolitics get into some discussions there. But as I said, even if Trump were declared winner, which could happen, we still got a lot of work to do. And if you tap around the edges of the oligarchy, it's a little bit. But there's very few of us here, and I think it's a growing number. Will it grow faster if Biden becomes president? It might. So there might be other things afoot at play. And if Trump is declared the winner, I would just say, please do not go back and go, oh, yeah, now everything's fine. No, it's not. There's still a lot of problems.
Well, I mean, and here's something. I got this sent to me by a few people today. This has gotten some people kind of concerned and angry.
Yeah. So this is a Trump tweet. Stock market up big. Vaccine coming soon. Report 90% effective. Such great news. Well, and the irony, of course, is the media is reporting it as if it's not Trump's vaccine, right? Because now Biden is supposedly won because the media declared him the winner. But yeah, no, I agree. I think one of the biggest mistakes he made, and there are others, but is buying into the whole mythology and shutting down the economy. That torpedoed his slam dunk second term and made it a fight, made it a competitive fight where it shouldn't have been. And he was duped, yeah. A lot of people were duped, yeah. But at the same time, he's got intuition. And so this is one of the things
he's trying to play the political game as well,
Mm-hmm.
Of course, when I saw that this morning, of course, you notice in that video clip that we played, it's like the CEO, this is a great day for humanity, and blah, blah, blah. And right next to him is the stock, the Pfizer stock gain. It like jumped like 3 zillion %, hey, this is a great day. Well, of course, it's a great day. Your stock just jumped 1,500%
through the roof, right?
And isn't it interesting, right? I mean, leading up to the election, Trump kept saying, we're going to get a vaccine. Vaccine's coming. It's going to do it. We're doing a great job. It's going to come, blah, blah, blah. And, Pfizer, along with the others, oh, no, wow, we don't think there's going to be a vaccine until, next Christmas or, what is it, 10 years from now. I mean, it's really hard,
What's
getting
the
a
point,
vaccine.
man?
But
What's
listen, is it not suspicious that 5 days after, is it 5 days? 6 days? Well, 5 days, I guess.
Yeah.
After the election, suddenly there's this great news and they're throwing confetti in there. Yay, look, we found a vaccine. It's 90%. Yay. And the stock market goes up and everything happens. Is it too far-fetched to say that they maybe didn't already know this information 5 days ago?
Sure. Well, and now Kali Marr will take the vaccine because apparently Trump didn't win. And we'll see. I mean, that could change too. Right? That's what
Pfizer's even like, we weren't a part of Operation Warp Speed.
Right. They try to distance themselves.
We didn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah. So again, what's my bottom line? What do we need spiritually to grow? What do we need? Is it a communist takeover of the United States to wake people up to recognize the value of liberty, freedom? For those in Utah, we can change that meme, that says, Governor Herbert, your constitutional mask mandate stops where my agency begins. So you understand what I'm saying? And yet those even duped by the pharmaceutical church, because there are plenty of what we call people of faith that have no faith or only partial faith, however you describe it, because they place their faith in secular governors like Herbert who say, well, it's the doctors are saying this, so we got to do this. So basically you're restricting your freedom to breathe. And I call it a satanic masking ritual. And I don't back down from that. People snicker uncomfortably, but that's what this is. This is not being kind to your neighbors. This is helping your neighbors onto the boxcars. There's another meme going around, Super Don, you've seen it. Do you ever wonder what you would have done in the era of Nazi Germany? And you look around at the people wearing masks and say, and now you know. And it isn't that wearing the mask is ushering people into boxcars to turn them into soap. That's not what I'm saying. But it was always the transition, a little bit over time, a little bit. Just do what you're told. Be a good citizen. Be a good German. And if there's not a major stinking pushback everywhere, I'd say, but particularly where people of faith live, then you're misreading a lot of your biblical text. And I'm not picking on anybody. I'm just saying that my humble opinion. You can agree, disagree. That's fine. Let us know. But I think it really is a spiritual war, even though it plays itself out politically. What is needed for our spiritual growth? When I've visited countries around the world that do not have the luxuries we have, that do not have a realistic expectation that they can live by waking up that morning reasonably to the end of the day. Not because they're sick, but because it's just that rough and tumble of a life. They could be on the road and pulled over and blocked at a blockade and hacked up by machete. This is the reality of certain people's lives on this planet. And of course, your spirituality in those situations is like you're going to rely on God a lot more perhaps than in an arena where you wake up, you don't want for anything. Yeah, you might not be the richest person in the world, but you got food, you got shelter, on and on it goes. And you're like, You're convinced you really don't need to be spiritually oriented, have God in your life, that kind of thing. And then they say there's no atheists in foxholes, but there are people that live their whole life in foxholes, and so they have to absolutely rely on spirit to get by. Perception is we don't have to. But as you see potential communist China takeovers of the United States, you go, oh, maybe I really need not only engage politically, but find the principles and communicate those principles to others out there that recognize that Christian socialism is a complete misreading. To use the government, to take the government in there and do that. Anyway, we got one more story here before the top of the hour, and we got Chris Barr joining us, not a doc. After the British Army thing, let's go to New York and look at the Bar Association. Why they have any opinion about anything that we care about. The New York Lawyers Association there recommends mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations. Really? A bunch of lawyers? How are they even qualified to make a statement like this? They reject religious, philosophical, or personal reasons for COVID-19 vaccine exemptions. How about the fact that there's no test for COVID-19? You know what? This is a day where I'm almost cussing, and I'm holding myself back, Super Don. You know what? I'm just like, all pretense of niceness is gone. The New York State Bar Association passed a resolution urging the state to consider enforcing mandatory COVID-19 vaccines, even if people object for religious, philosophical, or personal reasons. And I object to masks based on the fact that they are satanic and they limit my freedom to breathe. That's it. That's enough. Your unconstitutional mandates, prohibitions, stop where my freedom begins. And until Americans and the people of planet Earth live that way in opposition to the church of pharmaceutical mysticism everywhere, that church will continue to run roughshod over your rights of religious liberty, spiritual freedom, even political freedom, as they capture one nation after another via capturing the regulatory agencies by buying them outright, and their legislators and their presidents and prime ministers, etc. But this couldn't and wouldn't happen if our government was constrained within the bounds of the Constitution, where it had little or no impact because it was not authorized to do 99% of the things that it does today. And so what motivation would there be for the pharmaceutical industry to purchase influence with a government that couldn't do squat to make their products exclusive monopolies and mandated? Do you follow me here? I'm trying to be efficient about our action. It isn't necessarily about who's in government. It's about the people allowing the government to grow like a cancer without end, without restriction, without limitation. And for those of you who haven't figured it out, one of those ways is to engage and learn more about the 10th Amendment. And my buddy Michael Bolden, the 10th Amendment Center, who won't come on the show because he claims he has got nothing to say. But Michael, you got lots to say. So we want you on the show as soon as you're able. We're working on getting Michael Badnarik on. There is talk of Texas secession, and we want to hear from him on that as well. And that's the ultimate check on the power of the federal government, by the way. You guys are so out of control, our only option is to basically dissociate from you, secede. We're starting our own country. Get out of here. See you. Have a nice day. That's what? The Declaration of Independence was a secession document to secede from the United Kingdom, if you will, Crown, Britain. And Texas and other states might have tried to do that because they didn't like what Trump was doing if Trump wins. You might see liberal secessionists. Of course, they want a communist country. Texas does not want that as a Republic of Texas, but we'll get into that. So let's take a break here. Hope you enjoyed the first hour of the Robert Scott Bell Show. Yeah, I will, the scraggly thing, whatever it is, you'll see how bad it is when you compare it to Not a Doc's, Chris Barr's. It's just embarrassing, but I am willing to embarrass myself for the benefit of freedom. Hopefully you laugh a little bit too. Thanks for being here. Whole other hour of broadcast healing coming up in just a moment because the power to heal is yours.
The Robert Scott Bell Show. The Robert Scott Bell Show.
Have you ever watched a movie with superheroes and villains? If so, you already understand the science of drinking hydrogen-enriched water and how to unlock true health. Allow me to explain. In our bodies, we have a natural struggle between superheroes and villains, with molecular hydrogen being the superhero and oxidative stress the villain. So how does knowing that give you the tools to unlock true health? Your body is naturally designed to fight oxidative stress through specific bacteria in the gut that creates hydrogen on their own. Pretty awesome, right? So why does this matter? Well, in most people, the hydrogen-creating bacteria is gone, and cancer and disease soon follow. So the real question is, why aren't we trying to fix this every day? Well, the answer is simple. It's hard. Even the most healthy of individuals who biohack take months or years to achieve this balance. But how do we get there without taking months or even years? After years of study and development, we discovered and designed the perfect technology that made it all possible. We call this technology Echo H2 Water. Within minutes of drinking hydrogen-rich water from our Echo Hydrogen water machines, you are back in control, balanced, and feeling amazingly hydrated and healthy. Having your own Echo Hydrogen water machine is kinda like having your own team of superheroes on call, always available to fight the villains in your body. Pretty cool, right? But don't just take our word for it. Get your Echo H2 water machine today and quickly bring your body into balance with hydrogen.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
I listen to get accurate, up-to-date information.
I've learned so much from him.
It is awesome. It's the best entertainment that I've found.
You rock the health world. Keep it up. I love you.
Now, the voice of health, freedom, and liberty, here's Robert Scott Bell.
All right, we made it through the first hour of the Robert Scott Bell Show. We had, again, just remind you, yesterday's show with John Rappaport was another treasure to behold, to go through things the way methodically that he does, that we get to do together. And we're going to do that even more nutritionally right now in the second hour of the show. Super Don, is he ready? I think we are. I'm going to show everybody. Lean up, sit up straight, Super Don. We got Not a Doc and his, see, that's a real beard. Super Don, you can do it. I can do it sitting up straight. I cannot do it. I could try to grow this for years and it still would not look as really nice as Chris Barr. Welcome back to the show, my friend. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to be here on these questionable days of confusion.
Yeah, I know. It's not like that everything was perfect with Trump before. I mean, I try to put these perspectives on it, but I look to remedy these things. And Super Don always says this: how do we limit our exposure? How do we limit what the federal government, no matter who's president, can do to us? I don't want them to do anything for us necessarily other than what's prescribed in the Constitution. But these are, things that maybe more people will discuss and debate to get to a deeper level of what really is a remedy.
Super Don, this is your cue to bring up Dazed and Confused by Zeppelin. But anyway, it's the state of America now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. I mean, but although we'll probably get tagged and banned if we played it, so without the proper licensing for Led Zeppelin, they're pretty protective of their songs, and the song sometimes remains the same. So with that, Chris, I want to talk nutrition and COVID. I mean, obviously, if you want to add anything into the political matrix mix and discussion, that's fine too. But, you know, we covered a while back with you the Danish study talking about selenium. Apparently, Switzerland has come out with its own study also pointing to nutrients and minerals as a key here to protect us from whatever they say COVID-19 is. We know there's a lot to be left behind. They don't want to explain, because once you do, you say this is just a nonsense story from the beginning.
Yeah, it is it's a BS science. That stands for bad science from the beginning. You know, we can go back decades in the medical reports on selenium and viruses and viral loads, and that the key to any virus before this one came along, and every virus before this one came along, and I submit this one too, is selenium. The place where the viruses most often come from and that are problems is from China, which has documented with the lowest selenium levels across their nation. Diseases have been named after areas, Qishan disease in China, that was eventually found to be a selenium deficiency. That's all it was. That's all it is. China did a study back in April, and because they're aware of this, they know. And there's a strip that goes diagonally across the nation for a very low, almost no selenium in the soil at all. And at the far end of that diagonal is the highest selenium level. It's very high in selenium. And they noted that, the highest selenium soil area had the lowest COVID death rate by a long margin. And the lowest selenium area had the highest death rate. That was cited also along with other supporting scientific citations in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in July, a Danish health publication in early September, a Swiss health group in Switzerland just a couple of weeks ago. The documentation is very good. It's very thorough. And why do Americans have more and more problems with autoimmune disease and with viral issues? Well, because the levels of selenium have been dramatically falling in America for the last 50 years. They weren't great 50 years ago, but we have half the level of selenium today that Americans had 40 years ago. So it's a selenium issue, plain and simple. But you're not allowed to say that. And sadly, the nutrition community is too stupid to even know the best information they have. That they keep promoting vitamin C, which is almost worthless, Chris, and actually harmful in the doses they're talking about. Vitamin D that has some role, or zinc that has a little more role involved, but nothing compares to selenium, and it's documented in the medical literature going back decades.
Chris, I've asked you this many times, and it's worth saying again, because I keep coming back to that ever since I learned of it and we started talking about this. It's like, to me, my fundamental bottom line starting, and I almost say endpoint, it's not that we say endpoint because we know we need all these minerals and things. They're part of us. But there's nothing that has the impact at lower dosages, if you will, microgram levels than selenium compared to anything else. And yet there's so much focus elsewhere. Even if they kind of throw a bone to selenium, we cover it because like, oh my gosh, they mentioned selenium.
Well, I won't even get into names because it's pretty much everybody in the nutrition industry. But even those who have great selenium don't talk about it in regards to immune system. They're promoting, they have selenium, great selenium, but they talk about zinc and vitamin D and vitamin C, and they don't even mention or include selenium. And it's the most important item of all. By the way, just so I can put a scare into everybody, Innate Response is now out of selenium. I called just the other day to get some, and they said, "Oh, we're out." So call Jonathan Wagner at Choose to Be Healthy to get selenium while he still has it.
Oh, good Lord. That's it. It's like a run on toilet paper now. There's going to be a run on selenium on the Robert Scott Bell Show. Well, I'm showing a picture, by the way, in the show notes today of Chris and Jonathan Wagner. He interviewed you a time ago. I think that he's coming to visit at the Shiloh Shalom B&B coming up real soon, and you guys are probably going to do more video interviews.
That's the plan. At least that's what I'm told. He'll be here in a couple of days, and I'm just doing what I'm told. Sit down and let's talk. All right, about what? So
Yes.
But it's just amazing that that people should know this in the nutrition industry, and they don't. So I guess we can't get too upset with the medical folks. That dog Fauci actually is more of a hyena, scavenger carnivore. He's been in charge of the government's immune agency for almost 40 years and has never written or spoken a word about selenium. You can't be an expert on the immune system and not address selenium. So that means he's a complete putz. And please look that up in Yiddish because it fits him to a T.
It's a great word. Yiddish has some great words. Putz is one of them. Also, Chris, I mentioned Biden, if he were to become president, who he's already assembling for his COVID task force, and that includes David Kessler. You remember Kessler?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Kessler. Yeah, old head of the FDA. Him and Zeke Emanuel. Yeah, you gotta figure it for what it is. It's being picked by B-Boy. I'm referring to him as B-Boy and Commie. So. It's much easier to say. And she's so upset about her getting the first syllable on her name right. So I'm obliging her, Kali
Mar. And yeah.
Kami.
Okay, that too. So if we're to look at distinctions and differences between Trump and Biden, there are some. I admit there are. I mean, Biden would never bring in a Scott Atlas. I mean, that was good. It's a little late, but it's better late than never. That you got this one guy that's actually talking some sense. He's not going nearly where we go, but it's a little, it's like we get happy with a little, throw us a little ball. It's just like, I get it. On a principled level, it wouldn't matter if the presidency were as weak as the founders designed it to be, and the whole government was limited by what the founders had designed it to be in the Constitution. But we're so far gone from that it's almost inconceivable for people to think of a possibility like that to come, but it might inevitably happen economically.
Yeah, well, I don't really get too involved or upset about politics because I know it's all just, you know what politics is. Poly is many and ticks are blood-sucking insects. So there's many blood-sucking insects. I don't want to get too involved there. Especially since it's been corrupt for more than 100 years, which I've well documented. And very few people have even paid any attention to, and a few more in recent years. The first progressive wasn't a Democrat; it was Republican. It was Teddy Roosevelt,
right? And
he made a complete destruction of the foundation of our health system because he was a diabetic and he loved sucking on saccharin, hard candies. So he had to use saccharin. When the Pure Food and Drug Act came out, and Dr. Harvey Wiley said saccharin is a bad substance, it turned Roosevelt's stomach, or rather his taste buds. He said anybody who says saccharin is dangerous is an idiot. So we lost the Pure Food and Drug Act and the foundation of health because of the sweet tooth of diabetic progressive Teddy Roosevelt. And we had the same culprits back then. Ira Remsen at Harvard. Heinz ketchup, Coca-Cola, they were all fighting against having healthy dietary choices. So the battle was lost a long time ago, and it's remained lost and worse because people won't wake up to what happened 115 years ago, and has gotten only worse since then.
Yeah.
And what is worse? Well, the most removed nutrients from the foods most Americans most commonly consume are selenium, silicon, and chromium. Okay, so it's been going on for a long time. White refined bleached flour was determined to be a violation of the law in 1915 by the United States Supreme Court, and then World War I hit, and it got lost in the trenches, literally. So white bread became the food of choice. It's the number one. White refined bleached flour is the number one consumption of the American diet. So people keep getting worse and worse on chromium, selenium, and silicon, which are the three most removed and the three most important of all nutrients. And so people need to file suit against the government for not enforcing the Pure Food and Drug Act and getting rid of all the white refined bleached flour in the marketplace.
Chris, it's somewhat ironic that the rise of progressivism aligns perfectly with the rise of chronic disease in the West as it was devoid of principle, right? The principle of limited government, principle of defense of individual liberty. And I talk about the constitution of our bodies being harmed by not recognizing what it takes to build and maintain a strong constitution. At the same time, abandoning the constitution of a country or a state will result in disastrous consequences for the people in it or the people themselves. And, you put it beautifully. Jonathan Emord is writing a book on the history of progressivism going back 115 plus years to show people how we got here. And, he's in the midst of it battling the oligarchy when they try to attack anybody who says anything good about selenium, for instance, and validated it with sound science as well. So it's a fascinating parallel track that we're discussing today.
Yeah, and that's an amazing and excellent example because, Jonathan Emord has fought the FDA dragon specifically on selenium, and the federal courts have ordered them over and over and over again, 7, 8 different lawsuits, and they keep ignoring the federal judges that have ordered them to allow claims about selenium. The FDA says no. I don't know anybody else who's able to thumb their nose at a federal judicial authority and say no, we're not going to obey you, and they go back to court again and again. So, but again, people don't know that the FDA is a criminal agency. Its background is criminal. They changed the name of the Bureau of Chemistry that Dr. Harvey Wiley ran and got the Pure Food and Drug Act going. So they changed it to the Food and Drug Administration after they'd completely corrupted the Bureau of Chemistry. So it's a criminal organization anyway, and that's not just my opinion. That's what Dr. Harvey Wiley wrote in his autobiography in 1929, History of a Crime. And it documented the change to a criminal nature of the Bureau of Chemistry to the Food and Drug Administration. We're talking almost 100 years ago, and people don't know. That's where I learned so many of the things that I share about the Supreme Court, finding white refined flour to be a violation of the law. And now today, according to the Department of Commerce, a little more than 10 years ago, that's the number one component of the American diet.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're eating ourselves to death, literally. And no virus has any power over selenium. None. And this one doesn't either.
Yep. So let's go to our story. I just want to go harken back to the Swiss study, and it's linked up in the show notes at robertscottbell.com. Scroll down, and you'll see the video with Not a Doc as well, and Jonathan from ChooseToBeHealthy.com. But if you click on this diet and supplements, Swiss panel publishes COVID-19 recommendations. And I joked in the first hour, FDA's got to write a cease and desist letter to Switzerland. How dare they promote nutrient supplements for prevention of what they call COVID-19. And I'm scrolling down. It's at nutraingredients.com, the story. And it goes through different things. Of course, they mentioned C and D. And then the third one down is selenium. And they actually talk about some of the scientifically validated needs for it, what it can do in the body. That's something, as you pointed out to me before the show, it's not as direct as the Denmark study, but it's still something. And the irony, of course, is if we point to that and, like, say, paste it up on a health food store that might carry the right form of selenium and say, look, see, they would, be on you like yesterday and ban you from selling it, fine you, shut you down. I mean, this is how scared they are of people finding out that it is nutrient deficiencies, particularly selenium, that are manifesting as viral infections, even though the virus has never been proven to be the cause of anything other than the result of dysregulation of cells from within, not even needed to be caught.
What has been proven or demonstrated, though, is that higher selenium levels result in viral loads being fended off. Okay, that's actually in the medical literature. So we can't say it's the cure for, but we can say that when there's selenium present in sufficient amounts, that viral loads do not occur. And nobody can be sick with any virus unless there is a viral load of it. So vis-a-vis, you can't have a viral issue if you have plenty of selenium. Yeah, that's just science. So, B-Boy keeps talking about, we're going to listen to the science. Well, hey, B-Boy, the science says selenium is the key to COVID. So shut up about vaccines. You don't need a panel of 13. All you need is one, not a doc. Or you could go to the Swiss panel and to the Denmark people and to the people of the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition that publish out of the University of Hawaii.
Yeah.
Or your friends in China even have addressed this.
That's right. We reported on that study University of Hawaii brought back out, which showed in China areas where they had sufficient or higher levels of selenium in the soils and in the food and the people versus areas where they had deficiencies. Of course, what they call COVID-19 manifesting in its worst scenarios happened only where there was selenium deficiency. I mean, it doesn't get much clearer than that.
Yeah, and that's the science. Okay? And it goes back long before there was a COVID-19, because it's documented in the medical literature going back decades about selenium and viral loads. It's at the National Institutes of Health. You can go look it up on the National College of Biological, whatever, NCBI, and it's just a matter of fact. It's not an opinion. It's a fact. Selenium is the key to viruses, period. And Americans have half the level they had 40 years ago. And 40 years ago, they didn't have a great amount. It was about half the level of Japan and America. And now it's half that level. So get the selenium going and, quit worrying about masks and quit worrying about social distancing or, vaccines. None of those things matter. Selenium is all that matters. This virus doesn't matter if you have the selenium you're supposed to have in your body.
Chris, people of faith that, I'm pretty direct about it. Maybe it upsets some. A lot of people here are not so upset when I say it. They also worship a false god, a false idol, if you will, in medicine, modern medicine. And who was it? Was it Scott Whitaker did that medicine? Remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. I'd love to get him or who's the co-author there of that book? You remember?
Jose Fleming and Scott
right?
Whitaker.
But would love to get them back on or either one on the show.
I'll see if I can find them.
Okay. Yeah.
It's funny because I had coined that word some years before that. And I learned about the book because Dr. Carley called me up and, Chris, have you seen this? And I hadn't. Hey, did they get this from you? And I said, no, I don't know who they are, but good for them. And then I got in contact with Dr. Whitaker, who was a naturopath, and Jose Fleming, who was an herbalist. And they wrote a very good book and called it Medisin, Medisin, because that really is what the foundation of medicine is based upon, is pharmacology, which is sorcery.
Yeah.
And it's against life, which is why they use antibiotics, which means against life, rather than probiotics, which literally means for life. People don't know the power of words. They don't know that these people have called themselves sorcerers. I didn't call them that. They chose to identify as pharmacology and pharmaceutical, which is sorcery. That's what the word means. That's where it comes from.
Right.
So,
well, it is maybe uncomfortable for some, but I think I want to continue to call it out and say, guys, gals, what are you thinking? I mean, you claim to be devout worshipers of the Creator, and yet you turn your bodies and your kids' bodies over to these sorcerers. And, I've said there is legitimacy in a small or narrow way where you have an injury due to being hit by a car or a bus, and they have amazing abilities to put you back together. But then beyond that, that's not their skill set. Their skill set is to poison you, or they claim poison you back to health, which is just an absurdity.
But that's not sorcery. That's mending. So when they're not practicing sorcery and mending, they're doing good work. When they get back to chemical sorcery, no, it's actually forbidden in the Christian scriptures, and people don't even know it. It's the word is translated as witchcraft, sorcerer, and sorceries. But it's from pharmakeos, pharmaceutical.
But if we look at...
And it's commanded against, by the way. It said that people who are sorcerers and sorceries and witchcraft are going to burn in the lake of fire. So that's a pretty strong condemnation.
But the irony, of course, they use modern context to talk about witchcraft, like the double boil in trouble, that kind of thing, where they're putting eye of newt. And they're using things from nature. It's like doctors make witches look like, romper room stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
well, there would be no medicine if it wasn't for the churches. It's organized medicine in partnership with science, or science so-called. That's another interesting thing. In the book of 1 Timothy, the same chapter that says the love of money is the root of all evil, at the end it says to beware of vain and profane babblings and oppositions from science falsely so-called. We're living in a generation of science falsely so-called, and it's right there in the Christian scriptures not to fall for that. and people don't even know. And what's it about? The love of money.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I say, a return to what I call true faith. Now, I realize people have different perspectives on it, different beliefs about it, but to simply move beyond the limitations of the body politic when it comes to the divide, the Hegelian dialectic, the things that would divide us through fear once again. And fear is the great tool that they use. And I say, you know, when people ask me, Chris, about how come you're not afraid, right? You've been doing this for 21 years and longer, you know, talking about natural medicine and healing. And I said, look, if I'm afraid, that indicates to me that I've distanced myself somehow from God, from Creator, because why would I be afraid if I'm following the edicts, if so to speak? You know, if I'm living according to the law, there's no room for fear then. And so if you are, to me, it's a litmus to say, maybe I'm off a little bit or a lot, and I should be paying attention to why that fear has come up, because it's not a fear of falling off of a cliff that you're dangling off of. It's a different kind of fear.
Yeah, it's an irrational fear. You know, there is no fear in love. That's another thing from the scriptures. People don't know that, for instance, Besham, his writings were put on the forbidden reading list by the Pope at Rome. So again, there's been an organized system of organized religion with politics coming against real truth on health and healing, going back now 150 years. So just listen to your body, listen to real science, B-boy. And it's about the terrain. It's not about some critter that's going to attack you that you can't see and overwhelm you. The only way it could even overwhelm you at all is if you've been eating such garbage for so long generationally that you don't have any selenium or don't have much in your system.
Right.
You know, so put it back.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid.
If you abandon your constitution, and I mean your body's, by not giving it what it needs, what do you think's going to happen to it? It will crumble. You might.
And again, they bring fear back in because there's this great fear of selenium that's been propagated from the federal level going back to the early 40s. And it's one of the most effective propaganda campaigns in the history of the U.S. government and of medicine, but especially of the government, that even people who believe or say they believe in nutrition are afraid of selenium because it could be dangerous.
Yeah. How many of y'all have heard this? Come on, be honest. People that are holistically inclined, whether they be medical or not, go, but we got to be careful with selenium. How often have you heard this? And Chris and I have talked about this many times over the years, and there are selenium specials where we focused on things about how that fear came to be with the wrong form to access, and how we utilize the whole food form that is not problematic. In fact, at levels and dosages we've talked about. In fact, when we come back from this break, Chris, we got two cancer stories.
Oh, yes.
Alex Trebek and Al Roker that will also play into the role of selenium and other minerals. But let's talk about that fear of selenium versus the fear of not having enough, which apparently is not there. People are more afraid of taking selenium. So when we come back from this break, Chris Barr's here, Not a Doc, links up to the Not a Nurse and Not a Doc group on Facebook while it's still available. A great group to be a part of. It's a private group, but if you mention the Robert Scott Bell Show, they'll let you in. But don't be throwing some pharmaceutical pseudoscience and pretend vitamins into the mix. They will slap you down and send you packing elsewhere. This is about 100% whole food nutrition to restore integrity to your constitution and that of your children or grandma and grandpa as well. So, Chris, thanks for being here. Stand by. We'll be back with more. In the meantime, say thanks to our friends at Trinity School of Natural Health, trinityschool.org. They support our message of health, freedom, and healing liberty. And we appreciate Julie Whitman-Klein and the family for their continual efforts, tireless efforts to restore freedom in this land as well. And health freedom is on the line. We'll be right back.
Trinity's Certified Natural Health Professional Program serves as the foundation to our more advanced CHHP or Certified Holistic Health Practitioner program. This course will teach you how to apply naturopathic fundamentals to pursue a healthy body, mind, and spirit. From wholesome cooking to shopping to the human body systems, this program prepares you to care for yourself, your family, and your community. In this course, you will learn human anatomy and physiology, as well as the requirements of each body system, the need for proper nutrition and elimination of waste, how to incorporate natural health principles in your own home with tips for shopping, cooking, cleaning, pet care, and first aid, how to conduct client consultations and assessments, and make safe legal recommendations. One of the greatest things about this certification is it's designed for you to put your knowledge into practice right after you complete the course. In a world full of toxins, it's essential to learn how to keep yourself and others healthy. Trinity's CNHP program is the perfect choice for you. If you have any questions or feel this is the program for you, please send us an email or give us a call and get started on your path to transform the world.
I remember trinityschool.org, trinityschool.org. I have, in fact, a lecture on demand available to you now, Clinical Homeopathy 101 Plus, and it's all rooted in the law of the terrain. Before, Chris, when you connected with me here on this show years ago, when I was interviewing Professor Peter Duesberg, it was such an alignment immediately. I didn't have the whole food nutrition background that you did, other than I was learning, and certainly about minerals and things. But I was working homeopathically to get the terrain restored, and I learned of Antoine Béchamp from my mentor as well, and so it was like, wow, this is awesome. The lost pieces, right? We're all looking for that. And now we're talking selenium again, as we love to do. And there are people asking like, oh, I never heard that selenium's depleted. Where did you learn about that? Are there definitive sources that you could recommend for people to find out how the soils have been depleted? And, people always bring up Brazil nuts. They have more than enough. Do they? Are the same as
no, they don't.
Years? Right. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
I refer to them as I can't remember what I call them now. The Nutty Brazil Nut Brigade, because they look at tables that say you can get hundreds of micrograms from eating a few Brazil nuts. Well, those are old tables, and the rainforests have been bombarded and over harvested. And all you have to do is look at studies over the last 50 years, and there are many of them.
Mm-hmm.
You dig for studies on Brazil nuts and find when they break down the amount of selenium now in Brazil nuts, it's a fraction of what it was 50 years ago. And it keeps going down, because I've looked at the studies 20 years ago that showed instead of 100 micrograms per nut, it ranged from 50 to 80. And then, 10 years ago from 18, I've seen studies as low as 8 micrograms. So 20 years ago, I told people, if you want to eat a handful of Brazil nuts every day, knock yourself out. But now it would take several handfuls. And, I don't know anybody that wants to eat a handful every day, let alone several handfuls. So it's just not valid science. As far as depletion of soils, that's been well established. The book Selenium from Dr. Richard Passwater, written back in the 70s, documented soil depletion. Dr. Gerhard Schrauser, University of California, San Diego School of Medicine, professor of medical chemistry, who chaired 2 world conferences on selenium and cancer, had noted, and others before him, he'd noticed the U.S. Geological Service doing soil surveys, that approximately 1/3 of America has very low selenium levels, 1/3 has modest levels, and 1/3 has high levels. And that's why regionally you can find differences in cancer, in increased or cancer amounts based upon they have low levels of selenium. In China, it's well established in the literature. All you have to do is go do a little bit of digging. And no, I don't have every citation off the top of my head name, but I don't need to, because they're easily verifiable for anybody who is actually honest.
Who wants to research it, you can find it. So where do we get
hard to find?
No, where do we get the claims of selenium toxicity? Is it that people that wandered the rainforest centuries ago that ate handfuls of Brazil nuts, that they all dropped dead of selenium poisoning? Where does this suddenly come from? Selenium, this great mineral, is now dangerous.
Well, it actually came from a direct intentional fraud from the U.S. government and Big Pharma back in the 39, 40. You can look it up, the effects of a seleniferous diet. And the reason it came about was Dr. von Wassermann from Germany had the first documented cases of selenium curing cancer in 1911. And it caused research to begin to increase So that throughout the 19 teens, 20s, and 30s, there were growing numbers of studies showing selenium and the success of selenium against cancer, not as a preventative, which is all that most people even know anything about today, but as an actual curative for cancer. So they came up with this study, which they did with rodents, and they found, oh my God, all these rodents getting this selenium, again, a clever title, The Effects of a Seleniferous Diet.
Mm-hmm.
But when you actually read the study, they added a pesticide in which the killing agent of the pesticide was selenium disulfide, okay, which is the only form of selenium
Oh, did he just?
actually,
Oh, there you
and
go.
you can't even get it accidentally. It's so tightly regulated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they added that to the rodents' diets, and even then, none of the had liver toxicity issues. They all had fatty livers, fatty tumors develop, and so the study concluded selenium could be dangerous and might cause cancer, even though they didn't find any cancer in any of the subjects.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason that there was any problem at all was they were using a poisonous form of selenium, adding it to their food supply.
Mm-hmm.
It had nothing to do with a seleniferous diet, as in selenium in the diet naturally occurring,
Mm-hmm.
but from adding a poisonous form. And ever since then has come the mantra from the 40s onward, selenium could be dangerous. It might cause cancer. It took until 1957 for Dr. Klaus Schwartz
Mm-hmm.
doing studies with rodents to show, oh, if he took all the selenium out of their dietary, they died. And he was actually studying liver necrosis, the death of liver cells and of the liver,
Mm-hmm.
and found that selenium was necessary for the liver, or else the liver ceases to function, and that means you die.
Yeah.
Okay? But of course, he wasn't using selenium disulfide.
No.
So it was an intentional study designed on purpose, a well-designed study to fail, because selenium was growing in the research community as an anti-cancerous substance.
Mm-hmm.
So it had to be put down. So that's how they accomplished it in 1940. And ever since, even the numbnut knuckleheads in the nutrition industry keep coming up with, well, you have to be careful. Selenium could be dangerous. Well, the number one cause of childhood blindness used to be oxygen. Okay? And then they figured out, oh, wait, we need to learn how to modify oxygen at childbirth better. They didn't say, oh, we've got to stop the oxygen with children because then they would die. Okay, so, is selenium dangerous? Well, it's less dangerous than oxygen is. And I don't see any campaign for people to stop breathing. Okay?
Well,
it's
no, there is.
fraud.
The governor of Utah wants you to stop breathing. He wants you to mask up. Stop breathing. Yeah. No, there's insanity out there. And so, let's see. We got in the show notes here 2 celebrities. One has died. I think the other is still going. Alex Trebek from Jeopardy dies after a battle with pancreatic cancer. Al Roker is revealing that he has a prostate cancer diagnosis. I think Al had either a gastric bypass or gastric sleeve. So I would argue that neither of these people are ill or dying or dead because they had too much selenium in their system. What do you say about these two folks?
Oh, absolutely not. I guarantee you. They can go do a blood study, find out their selenium levels. They could have checked out Trebek. They would find he had very low. They can check out Roker. They could find he's very low. And it's interesting in the news today because you have 2 ends of the spectrum there. Pancreatic cancer is among, if not the most lethal of all cancers. And yet we have a 100% success rate with pancreatic cancer, which is virtually incurable, according to the traditional medicine. Now, we only have a handful of cases, like 5 of them over 20 years. But we've been successful in every time because the key is selenium. And that's on the one end of the scale, the most lethal of all. Prostate cancer is the most common of all. And yet it's so not lethal, generally speaking, that one of the accepted medical or medical options for prostate cancer is
do
to watch
nothing.
and wait.
Do nothing at all.
Do
basically.
nothing.
Yeah.
Okay?
And then
So-
these men end up dying of something different than prostate cancer, in fact, many
Now,
cases.
Al Roker said he was told his has an aggressive aspect to it. Okay, so you need more selenium. Big deal. In fact, the landmark study from JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, 24 years ago, noted the most responsive of all cancers to selenium was prostate cancer. There was a 63% reduction of prostate cancer in those who had had cancer and they were put on 200 micrograms daily of a whole food form of selenium. Okay, so the most responsive of all is selenium. And frankly, if you have prostate issues, you have low selenium issues, period. There are no exceptions to that. It's not just a cancer issue. It's key to seminal issues. It's key to fertility. You know, selenium is the number one most important key to prostate health, not just prostate cancer. So the very fact that he has prostate cancer shows he has very low levels of selenium and he needs to bump them up. And the same goes for any cancer, but especially for prostate and pancreatic cancers.
Yeah, I'm looking at the website there. They're referencing the Mayo Clinic. At the end, they say, can prostate cancer be prevented? And they say this, in general, living a healthy lifestyle can help prevent prostate cancer in men. Eating a healthy diet full of fruits and vegetables, as well as choosing healthy foods over supplements, exercising regularly, and maintaining a healthy weight can all help, blah, 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 blah. But, you know, the thing is, we might agree with that over supplements if the supplements are synthetic. But what we talk about here are supplements that are food. They're not pretend.
Plus, it's just more BS, bad science, and frankly, they should be shot in the head. Oh, well, that might be too much. Or maybe not, because the Mayo Clinic is full of dogs and has been for 100 years or more. And I can document that from the literature. E.C. Rose now at the Mayo Clinic, who spoke up on behalf of Bisham and pleomorphism from the Mayo Clinic. The Mayo Clinic will do a selenium test for you. And if your selenium level is 150 or greater, they will warn you that your selenium levels are too high, even though 40 years ago, the American levels were 160, and that was low compared to Japan. So what was normal 40 years ago in Americans is now called too high by the people at Mayo. Eating foods over supplements doesn't work because the foods that Americans are eating has had the selenium stripped out of it, or they're using sulfur amendments commonly in the American farming community, which prevents the uptake of selenium into the plant.
Isn't that interesting?
They have got their heads so far up their behinds rather than on their shoulders that they aren't even worth listening to at all. They're intentionally deceiving people, or they're just stupid.
Yeah. Well, folks, again, if for anybody making the distinction to think that we are arguing for the use of synthetic amino acid chelates isolated and put together in a way that they attempt to mimic, it's not the same thing as food. So we're arguing for food as medicine. And if you're supplementing, that those supplements should be food as well, not synthetic isolates of some kind. And that's still in the natural products industry. People still scratch their heads. They're not sure about what that even means, Chris. After all, I mean, there's been an uptick in awareness. There has been, but it's still not where it needs to be.
No, it's like 5%. So that's not where it needs to be. Look, there was a study out of Europe, a human study, 2-3 years ago, in which they took, it was almost 100 subjects, males and females, and they gave them a supplement of whole food selenium, 3,000 micrograms daily. Now, I have never had anybody take 3,000 micrograms daily of selenium. In fact, that's about twice as much as the most I've ever had anybody take. And the result of that almost year-long study was they had 0 adverse event reports amongst the humans taking that incredible amount of selenium, but they were using a whole food grown variety of selenium. And yet we're told that the upper level of safety in America is 400 micrograms. And in Europe, they say 300 micrograms. But the truth of the matter is, the Japanese have been consuming an average of almost 400 micrograms a day daily up until 40 years ago. I don't know what it is now, but that's what it was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So the actual science refutes what all these numbnut knuckleheads say. It's deficient in the soils, and it's also made less available because of farming techniques. It's stripped out of the foods. 91% of all of the selenium is removed from the grain when they make white flour, refined bleached white flour from whole grain. 91%. So even if the soils were teeming with selenium, and they're not mostly, 91% is removed. So you must supplement, and you can't rely on Brazil nuts anymore,
right?
Because they don't contain the selenium that they once did 50 years ago or even 20 years ago.
Chris, selenium deficiency and brain and neurological health. We get a lot of questions about how to protect the brain, the nervous system, issues of dementia. In fact, there's one case here. Yolanda is asking about her husband who has Bell's palsy, and third time it's manifested, and she's telling him to take selenium. She's asking, anything else we can talk about for neurological issues, even Bell's palsy.
Oh, selenium, silicon, and chromium, and CBD. It's a neurological condition. There is nothing on planet Earth more important in vitalizing and revitalizing to the neurological system than CBD, period. Okay. So, and as far as break down brain tissue, yes, that's a selenium issue. That's something that Gerhard Strauser also addressed, not just cancer. And that's because the brain is composed primarily, more so than the rest of the body, of fatty tissue. And selenium prevents the peroxidation, the breakdown, rusting, if you will, of fatty tissue. So silicon, selenium, chromium are all three key facets of brain health. And so what are the three most removed nutrients from the foods most Americans most commonly consumed? Selenium, silicon, and chromium. Why are we seeing a dramatic uptick in Alzheimer's disease and brain breakdown? A lack of selenium, silicon, and chromium. And when you add into that excitotoxins, aspartame, NutraSweet, a variety of names it goes by, that's been documented to also increase Alzheimer's. So when you combine a gross deficiency of the most important nutrients with a gross introduction of toxic chemicals, it's amazing we have people thinking as smart as they are, or maybe they're not. Look at the current election scenario.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking about the body politic. How are we so out of sorts, so to speak, to even support someone like Biden or half of the country? And again, I'm not saying Trump is a saint, but relatively speaking, there are distinct differences. And I think that our brains are not working clearly. We have
absolutely are not.
Fat phobia, that's part of it. We're afraid of fat. Fat is necessary for brain and neurological function. We are heavy metal toxic for a number of reasons, including the vaccine injections. We are particularly deficient in these key minerals that, have you pointed out extensively over the years in your writings and other things, that are deficient in the soil, so they're deficient in the food. And if they're in the food, they are refined out of it by the time it gets to the average American's plate, or where they're eating it. And so we can't think clearly. And as I said, we ignore our body's constitution. The constitution of our nation is necessarily going to be neglected too, because we don't even recognize it. As above, so below, as within, so without. This is what we're dealing with here by not caring for our bodies, by turning our bodies over to priests in the church of pharmaceutical mysticism, these sorcerers of the pharmaceutical industry.
Yes, absolutely. And, one of Strauser's studies, I never got to get in contact with him about the details, but because he noted that they had checked 9 different areas of the country based upon one particular bread. I'm guessing they used Wonder Bread because that's the only one I can think of that was everywhere. That even with white bread that's had 91% of the selenium removed, they said, depending on the area of the country, the areas that had lower selenium in the soils, they found, I think he said it was a 10-to-1 difference in selenium content, even in the same bread recipe with the same bread company. depending on the region where they were, because they were getting their white flour from local areas. So even when you had dramatically reduced selenium levels, by processing, you had a gross difference in how much selenium people were getting from the bread they were getting, even when it didn't have very much at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's well documented. You have to look for it, but people don't look because I don't know. They're stupid. They're greedy. I don't know.
They're scared. All of the things that we talk about, fear and manipulation. Chris, I got to ask you, because we're so used to wearing your hemp clothing, and two times. Well, this is the second time recently we've got a fun shirt that is different, and I got to ask you, what is this? This is probably a concert.
I
t-shirt.
I did that just for you, Robert. This is my Robin Trower concert T-shirt from 2018. I've seen him twice. He's amazing. He's a very kindly man also. He's not a crazy rock and roller. He's a very sane person.
Yeah. Robin Trower. Nice. And
so I did that just for you, Robert. I've got Robin Trower on today.
That's cool. I love seeing you because I love hearing the stories of all the bands you've seen going way back when, and also seeing them in their later stages before they fully retire. To me, that's just a fascinating journey, because music, I know, plays a big role in your life. You are a musician, pianist, you play and you sing and all these things, and how music impacts. And I like people to make conscious choices about the music they engage in, because it can be therapeutic, it can be destructive. I mean, music's very powerful.
Yes, it is. And it's an escape or soothing for me and all the work that I do. So
yeah,
I have literally thousands of recordings, and people say, you couldn't possibly listen to all those. Well, I have, and I do, and I continue to do so.
Mm-hmm.
But I travel a lot, 6 to 10 hours on the road sometimes, every week on certain days.
Yeah.
So I change it up constantly.
And I love the fact that you don't have to buy a mask. All you have to do is put your beard up. And as you pointed out to me, you've got way more selenium in that beard than most people have in all of their bodies.
That's true. Yeah,
So
that's true.
Not that you need to eat the beard, but the point is you're healthy because you have the elements that provide for the proper functioning of every cell in your body. And that is the primary defense against whatever they say is you're going to catch. In fact, as I've said, the immune system is a secondary response when you have some sort of deficiency and you're not in that fully functioning state.
Well, it's interesting that long before COVID-19 ever came along, I've been telling people for years, because I understand Bisham and the law of the terrain, I've been telling people for many years, I don't fear germs. Germs fear me. So when I say that now, people think, oh, you're just being a smart aleck about, COVID-19. No, I've been saying that for years. And COVID-19 is no different, when it comes to immune system activity and selenium. Mm-hmm. And it's even documented now out of China, out of England, out of America, the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, Denmark, Switzerland now a couple of weeks ago. And yet somehow that hasn't made CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, hasn't made Forbes or Wall Street. It hasn't made anything in the mainstream. Sadly, it hasn't really hardly cracked a dent anywhere else either. But it is available for those who bother to look for it.
Yeah. By the way, the innate response that we use, and we've talked about this, we're not brand loyal, as Nadadoc has pointed out. It's like what we find that is actually whole food. If it's a different brand, like the silica, we use the Alta Silica, for instance. And these are food. So, yeah, you can pop a pill in your mouth and chew it because it's food. It's not pretend. It's not like you have to mix it with food to fool your body to use it properly.
And there's a track record also. Yeah. And, I've been doing this through 6 decades now, going back to the 70s. Mm-hmm. And, I've seen selenium and chromium and silica products come and go, and they didn't work. And I've seen some of them that were whole food, they were grown and they didn't work. So just because it is whole food doesn't mean it'll work. I've seen people use legumes, mushrooms, and they didn't get the results, responsiveness. So, the new kid on the block is mustard seed. And, I've told people, I said, well, when they can present to me studies that show that they could increase glutathione peroxidase and coenzyme Q10, which selenium will do in the body, then we can talk. And so I've had people come to me now that said, one woman the other day said, I went through 20 bottles of the mustard seed selenium and didn't have any results at all. I went on your protocol and I've had incredible results with the innate response selenium.
Yeah.
Because just because it's whole food doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be, it means it
Chris,
won't be bad.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's going to work.
There's pragmatism. And I'm pragmatic too. It's like, if it doesn't work, okay, we got to figure something else out. If it does, great. And we compare that over time because that proves itself out over time as well. Chris, we're out of time for UK Health Radio. They got to drop. We're going to take a quick break, and I'll check in and see if Chris wants to hang out for a little bit. Bonus time here on the Robert Scott Bell Show. We get to, at this point, each and every day. RobertScottBell.com. Links are up in the show notes. Thanks as well, especially to all those who are patron supporters of the Robert Scott Bell Show, helping us to sustain and hopefully grow and reach more people with this empowering message of health, freedom, and healing liberty, and where I remind you simply that the power to heal is truly yours.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
Scott Bell Show.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
Scott Bell Show.
Living Fuel. Upgrade your meal today. Imagine if you had a single meal which contained more protein than a half dozen organic egg whites, more fiber than 2 bowls of steel-cut organic oatmeal, more vitamin D than 10 fillets of Arctic fish, more vitamin B12 than 50 servings of raw organic cheese, more vitamin E than 1 pound of raw organic almonds, more calcium than 2 glasses of whole organic milk, more potassium than 2 organic bananas, more phytonutrients than 10 fresh organic green salads, more antioxidants than 10 bowls of fresh vine-ripe organic berries, more omega-3 than 2 cups of organic edamame, more resveratrol than 4 glasses of wine, more probiotics than 6 cups of yogurt, more enzymes than 3 whole organic papayas, more vitamin C than 7 oranges. That would cost $268.13 per meal and equal to 14,124 calories. Imagine all that nutrition in a single super meal you can afford. Now, you don't have to imagine anymore. Living Fuel, the super meal you can drink. Upgrade your meal today.
All right, back at it. Bonus time here on the Robert Scott Bell Show. They said, Chris, amazing show today. Once again, Super Don, great monitoring the feed. Apparently, Angie, not a nurse, is in the chat room, I think on the YouTube chat room. So if they might not get all of the answers or see even the questions, because most of the people watch right now live on the YouTube. But we do have, what is it, Twitch and D Live and Facebook Live and Periscope. It's all going out there. So however you're watching or listening live, and then later, of course, as an archive. At the Robert Scott Bell Show website, you go to robertscottbell.com, and up at the top of the page, there are little tabs, and you can click on the one that says Listen. For those of you who want to share the show, you could share that page, the Listen page. It'll open up, and you'll see all the different there's 24-hour audio stream access, all free. We got Radio America, our friend that's putting it out there. We got Facebook Live, Vaughn Live, YouTube, Periscope, D Live, Twitch, and on audio podcast, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, I apologize, and then UK Health Radio, our syndicated radio show still on Sundays at GCN, SoundCloud, some on Brighteon and Spotify even. And now there's something called Discord. I can't keep up with it, Super Don, but we got to keep up with it and keep ahead of it. Because if Biden does become president, there's going to be more attempts to censor the kind of info we're putting out here.
What?
The war on quote misinformation, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's that going to go?
It's been bad enough while Trump's president because they didn't really attack Section 230, but I think that's because in Congress there are plenty of rhinos that are globalists too that didn't want Trump in, as we see that what they're happening now is standing down instead of supporting Trump's efforts to, for whatever it's worth, to challenge some of the results in the courts and then let it fall where it may. Let's get all the legal votes counted and then see where it goes. And at that point, you're still not going to have conservatives or Republicans burning cities like the liberal commies are. There's a distinct difference. And I think part of it is mineral deficiency and part of it's indoctrination and programming. So anyway. All right. So, hey, Chris, did Angie say you needed to say something on the air? Because she's usually good about.
Somebody asked about selenium and phytates. Phytates, phytic acid, and whole grains can inhibit some minerals. Honestly, I don't have any information. I've never seen anything on phytates and phytic acid and interference with selenium. But it pretty much doesn't matter because they take most of the selenium out anyway, so there's not anything there to be interfered with. 91% of it's gone. Frankly, you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody in America who doesn't need at least 200 micrograms a day of innate response selenium. So I don't know the answer to that question, but it really doesn't matter because you're not going to get enough there for it to make a difference, whether it interferes with it or it doesn't. Sadly, so I just tell people to get your innate response selenium. Jonathan, that choose to be healthy.
Well, I tell people that my goal every day is 3 tablets, which is equivalent of 150 micrograms, and I try to target 3 a day. Then I get to 450 micrograms. I feel great there. I mean, some days I'll do only 300 micrograms, and I'm okay. But the idea is targeting and being up sufficient in that. And in the midst of, when I was traveling more, Chris, and I felt myself vulnerable, I would double and sometimes triple that dose. And people, again, as we talked about the fear of selenium, are freaking out over that. But again, we distinguish the forms and get to the heart of what's real and what's not about selenium and the science behind it. Now, my concern, and you brought this up earlier, that innate response itself is not producing enough or temporarily doesn't have any in stock. So Jonathan, choosetobehealthy.com has some. I don't know how much. I don't want to start a panic, but I'm certain people are going to be.
I don't know how much either. He may not appreciate me saying that, but
I know, but he's going to sell
out. But I don't think it's going to be. Last time they ran out, it was like 6 weeks or something.
Okay.
The feeling I get from them is that they're working on it. They're aware of it. So, they've learned their lesson from earlier in COVID. I hope everyone's noticing how the correct pronunciation of that is. Put an N in there. COVID-19. Yes.
It's an absolute common. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do know that when I called the other day to get some, that they said, "Oh, we're out and we're working on it." So anyway.
Okay. All right. Well, what else we got? Now, go ahead.
Well, frankly, if everybody were to get this, we'd have, it probably wouldn't be as bad as trying to produce a vaccine, but it would take a long time to provide enough selenium for 300 million Americans to get 300 to 400 micrograms a day.
Right.
So I guess we can be thankful that the message doesn't get out sooner, if that's possible, to be thankful for good information not getting out there. But anyway, that's a whole nother matter. So.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see what else we got. Super Don. Anything else going on out there regarding any of these topics or stories? Did we upset people with my rant in the first hour about a lot of things? Yeah.
No.
And do you need to get anything off of your chest today because you've been hammered with stuff over the weekend?
Because I probably will piss off some people, so I'm not going to.
All right. Well,
I'll just go. I don't know.
Discretion is the better part of valor. I heard that somewhere.
Yes, very good. And
I'll just take a nap.
He'll take a nap.
Yeah.
Not a doc. Would the missing link be available again soon? Any updates on missing link?
Nothing. The people are still butting heads between the producer and the manufacturer. So it's stupid, but I can't do anything about stupid in America either, apparently. So anyway.
Yeah. Now, is there an event? You said Jonathan Wagner's coming to visit. the Shiloh Shalom B&B where you are in Missouri. And is there going to be a public event where people are going to come and visit, or are they staying at the time and doing some special things while he's there?
There are some folks that are coming here because he's here. We haven't really made up. They just heard, so they wanted to come. So we're fully booked. If people wanted to come and visit, they could. We've heard people talk about that, but it hasn't gotten beyond talk. So I think he's coming just to get away with his lovely wife. And, I mean, he's not against seeing people, but I don't think he really wants to spend his entire time here being besieged by fans of Choose to Be Healthy.
Okay. Well, and have you started hosting like in a great room there, like lectures and discussions, just in a general sense or on a regular basis?
No, we haven't started that yet. In fact, my office is almost ready. It should be by the time Jonathan gets here. So it's, I'm very busy with, as I've told people for years, miracle workers are in short supply and the demand is very high. So I keep real busy just assisting people locally over radius.
Right.
But we're trying to calm that down so I can be here more and have people come to learn, et cetera.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, we're almost wrapping up here. And Chris, I appreciate your time today and staying extra time with us, which is cool. Tune in tomorrow to find out if I've actually shaved the scraggliness off of my face. I'm planning to, and really the votes have been unanimous. Usually I have some people supered on, they'll say, oh, that looks good. Go ahead. And even though my wife hates it, but somebody would but nobody likes it today because I'm looking at Chris.
That's not true.
I can't compete. What?
It's not nobody. Shaving is for puss. Oh, wait. I not say that. It's true, though.
There you go. Let it out. This is good. Super D.
Hey,
all right.
Yeah. If I can just address real quickly selenium and numbers. Okay. I didn't consult with a Ouija board. I didn't have a divine revelation. The Almighty didn't speak in my ear. Right. It's just based on the hard science. B-Boy keeps talking about listen to the science. Well, I just looked from when I started 50 years ago. What's the selenium intake in the healthiest nation in the world from things that we know selenium affects? Cancer, particularly and especially breast cancer. How much are they consuming, and they have lower levels, and it's based upon actual consumption levels. It's not based upon, I think 150 micrograms is a neat number, or 300 or 450. It's actual science that is brought. The same thing with chromium. I didn't come up with 100 micrograms 3 times a day because it sounded like a neat thing to do. Yeah. It was based upon human studies conducted by the U.S. government in the 1960s. Okay, so people need to pay attention to what your body needs and how it functions at certain levels versus not being at those levels. And that's the reason I talk about the forms that I do of the nutrients that I regard or address and the amounts of them. So it's just blatant, pure science that hardly anybody knows or apparently cares to know.
Yeah. All right. Well, Shane says I should grow the beard, and Ula says # bring back clean shave. She's trying to appease my wife and my mom.
I think Ula said she also likes her husband. That she likes beards on other men, but not on her husband.
Okay. Well, like I said, if I'm standing next to you, there's just no way that this looks anything but like the meager whatever it is that it is. Also, Kurt is asking about any law recommendations. I think he's referencing like in hour 1, I talked about the Social Security number and how it, makes you a party to the debt or collateralized to the debt. Now, the governors are the assistant governors to the fund. That means the International Monetary Fund. And I don't have one recommendation. There's a lot of books, whether you go Creature from Jekyll Island, but you can literally read the congressional record back in 1933 with the declared bankruptcy. This is already after the Federal Reserve came into being in 1913 with that act. And it was setting the stage for the international bankers, their subversive takeover of a legitimate nation by destroying its central, or let me say independent treasury, which is a necessary part of in the law of nations, if you read Vattel, in order to have a legitimate nation. That's what Reagan did by reestablishing the coining of gold and silver, the gold eagles, silver eagles. And, that's part of what you have to have, an independent treasury, and it no longer existed at that time when they removed all of the silver and gold from circulation. So there's a lot to study. There's not one thing. But you can read the congressional record. You can read about the bankruptcy. You can read about the IMF and the World Bank. You can read about international treaties through Congress, through the Senate, ratified, and find out how our country, and this goes back, Chris, to the progressive era and Teddy Roosevelt and others that have set the stage through progressivism for a collectivist, socialist, communist takeover of this country, not by invading armies with guns and bullets and bombs, but simply by altering the education system of this country and teaching people the glory of government and collectivism away from what our founders warned, said, listen, you got to defend individual liberty. The Constitution can't defend itself, but the people have to understand what we did and what we knew when we wrote this thing about the history of government, and that government is the great usurper and great danger to liberty and life and property. And we constrained our country, as I talk about the binds or the bounds of the Constitution, and it doesn't defend itself. So there's a lot of things to read. And Chris, I know you know a lot of this too, having birthed many babies of your own and recognized that they didn't need to be numbered like cattle in the field.
Well, I actually didn't birth them. I had a small role in the process.
Yes.
But yes, we didn't get social slavery numbers for them because I had learned of these things. That's what I call it, because that's what it is, the social slavery number, or you could say a social serf number. That it's to enslave the people or put them in servitude.
Well, you're right, and people don't realize it has nothing to do with the United States. It's an international number, again, through IMF, World Bank, and international treaties. And that's where we are lost a little bit when we say all we need to do is vote the bums out. But if you don't address the treaties that are inactive or that are active right now on our soil, going back to Agenda 21 through United Nations, a lot of the World Health Organization stuff, Trump, says we're going to defund them, and apparently maybe did. Now, if Biden gets in, then immediately we're back in 100% United Nations, World Health Organization. The CDC's bad enough, but we're all in. That's why I want Trump and everybody that supports him to fight like you know what, to see if it can be prevented from Biden becoming president based on fraud, et cetera. If it doesn't happen, we got to plan B, C, D, and E, and F, but we really got to understand how we got here. And this didn't happen because Trump's here or Biden's here for 47 years. It precedes that by many, many decades. And Chris, you know that.
Yes, it does. So, and B-Boy has already addressed those things that, Trump, and I've never been a fan of Trump, so I need to be clear about that too. But I'm also not a fan of the devil, so I'm less a fan of the devil than I am of
right.
Anyway, he got us out. He stopped funding WHO. He's got us out of the climate accords. He got us out of things that this nation, the taxpayers, were paying the predominant amount of the budget of those places, foreign wise.
Yes.
And he just said, well, look, y'all can fund yourself, y'all. And so B-Boy has already stated he's putting us right back in to all the things that Trump got us out of. So that's not a good thing, except for the internationalists. It's a good thing, but it's not a good thing for the American people.
Yeah. As I said, the globalists, the overt globalists, the subtle covert globalists, they all hated Trump. And that told me a little bit about he was genuinely an outsider in many things. Again, we don't claim he was the perfect guy. He was no Ron Paul. But relatively speaking, I think it was a clear thing. There was some level of clarity this time through. So we'll see where it plays out. But
we'll see how it goes.
We still got to stay connected to Spirit, to God. And however you do that, just strengthen that connection and that communication. So you'll always be guided to go down the right path. And if you're disconnected from it, you'll live in fear, and then you'll be controlled and manipulated by these bozos that are Biden fans, that are controlled and manipulated themselves but don't recognize it. They can't see themselves in the mirror, and they feel like they're always a victim, and the only way to solve the problem is to grow government, grow globalism, become communist. Of course, that is godless. It's atheistic if there ever was a form of government that was, and it destroys choice, agency, freedom. And that was one of the greatest gifts we've been given by that which created us all. Yes, that's right. So we'll just see how things play out. It's been bad before, and it could get worse, but I'm going to live as free as I'm able to live, regardless of what anybody says you can or can't do. And I always have. Yep. So, like I said, we take our orders from God, not government. And I think that's something we could all be a little better at as we move forward here, no matter what happens, as I said. All right, Super Don, as we wrap it up here, any other questions or comments coming through? And it's always fun with having Chris on board. We had a good day today.
Nope. I think we're all good.
Yep. So once again, if you're interested in more when we're not on the air or Chris is not here, Not a Nurse and Not a Doc is the group on Facebook. And I just, urge you, don't be bringing, it's good if you have questions about things. Sincere questions are always welcome. But those that are having agendas of synthetic forms of things, that's not what that group is about. It's about really empowering people to get well and stay well. And there have been people that have joined that group with, like, on death's door that are alive and well today because they followed the things that are basically founded in principle of life itself. And
Besham and whole food nutrition, the law of the terrain and whole food nutrition, which are one and the same.
Yeah.
And please go there to Jonathan at Choose to Be Healthy. He's got everything that I talk about. He's got some things I don't talk about, a couple things I don't care for, but anything I'm talking about, he's got there.
Yeah. It's easy to find it. The updated website looks great. And I know folks from all over the world have ordered, and sometimes he's shipping all over the world, but primarily in the States here. You go to choosetobehealthy.com. If it's your first order with Jonathan, there's an RSB 5 discount. Sometimes he has discounts if you order multiples of things, but you could always reach out and ask. And Jonathan's been great supporting us and all y'all out there to get the things that we use here at the Robert Scott Bell Show and our household. So, Chris, thanks, my friend. It's good to see you. Big hug to Angie. And thanks for her chatting with everybody in the chat room to answer those questions we couldn't get to.
All right. Thanks for having me on, getting the word of truth out.
You got it. We have a good time every time. And Super Don, thanks, man, for making it sound so good. I guess we'll take a break. Be back less than 22 hours from now. Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right. Keep rocking the health word, y'all. Stand up for what's right and true and reconnect to the source of all sources. That's not government. That's God. We'll be back soon.